Good morning, ASEAN. Freshen up your world, your thought, and your idea with us every weekday from 7:30 to 8 a.m. I'm Pathom Desha Putharangsi.
And Rina Jongprasit, and it's Monday, the 25th of March. Well, last Friday, Kun Pathurang, the stock exchange of Thailand really had quite a slump. It closed down 50 points at 1,478.97. This was an 8% drop within the whole week from its high of 1,600 points. Well, the slump is due to sell-off of the brokers and concern that the government will have tightening measures due to the strengthening of the baht. Kun Pathurang.
I see. But according to stock analysts, Kun Weena, the Thai stock market is likely to regain and recover within the second half of this week.
Yes.
And also escape the impact of the Cypriot government's decision to approve a series of measures designed to help it get a bailout deal and avert a financial meltdown. However, they expressed mixed views on whether the market's expected rebound would last long. The Kiat Kong Deko, a strategist at CIMB Securities Thailand, he said that they first need to understand that the uncertainty over Cyprus hasn't had even a 1% impact on its Thai stock market's recent sell-off. The Cypriot parliament late Friday passed 9 bills, including 3 key ones to restructure the country's ailing banks, restrict financial transactions in emergency, and set up a solidarity fund. And with potential bankruptcy just days away, lawmakers are racing to complete a plan to raise the funds necessary for the country to qualify for an international bailout. Finance officials were scheduled to meet with representatives of prospective creditors Saturday to work on several new laws, including a crucial bill that would impose some form of a tax on bank deposits. The percentages and where the tax would apply are unclear, but the lawmakers said Friday it could be less than 1% on all deposits. The European Central Bank has given Cyprus until Monday today to raise 5.8 billion euros to qualify for a 10 billion euro bailout, or it says it will cut off funds to the banks, in a move that would likely cause them to collapse and possibly push the country out of the single economic bloc.
And just a short announcement, next month there'll be a debate between the Finance Minister, Kun Kitirat Naranong, and the former Finance Minister, Kon Jatika Wanit, on the 2 trillion baht infrastructure budget. Well, the debate will be taking place in Sri Lanka Hotel, Shangri-La Hotel, excuse me, from 6:30 to 9 p.m. on April the 18th.
After Songkran Festival. Right.
Well, we will bring you to the next interview we have still on Cyprus, on how the Europeans actually view this Cyprus crisis. Take a look.
How do Europeans in general view the Cyprus crisis, and are they in favor of handing out a bailout of 10 billion euro to Cyprus?
I think this is a very, very difficult question, as I think a lot of European citizens as well as European governments were a little bit surprised about the dynamic that suddenly happened in Cyprus. It was always clear that Cyprus has a huge financial sector, and there were clear signs in 2008 that Cyprus had a problem with its banking sector and the refinancing of its banking sector. And but then for a certain period of time it got out of the headlines, and now suddenly it was pushed back in quite a dramatic way. At the moment, I think the European member states, but as well as the European citizens, are a little bit tired of the situation, in the sense of there's a problem with countries and the structures within countries that have lived a long time very well from very high interest rates, and not basically restructuring the banking sector in a more transparent way. And now we are in a situation where the country is basically bankrupt, and now there has to be found a solution that the people's assets are secured, and at the same time the Cyprus state and government not going to default. So I think the Europeans are looking very critical at a country that has very low income taxes and very low taxes on assets, and getting a lot of interest, while all the other countries are basically struggling with very high income taxes for its citizens, trying to restructure their sectors, trying to bring more transparency into the banking sector. And here in Cyprus, it's seen or perceived by a lot of Europeans that things were not moving ahead, and it was a predictable scenario that is happening now.
And if you bail out...
to answer your, just to answer your question at the very end, I think, yes, there is no problem, and the ECB is ready in the IWF and the European Union to bail out Cyprus if Cyprus is doing their homework as well and bringing assets on the table of 6 billion. So in this case, the European and the Troika, consisting of the International Monetary Fund and the ECB, are ready to bail out, but they have to do their homework first.
Right. And if the bailout is unsuccessful, what are going to be the implications for the EU as a whole?
Well, that's the question everybody is asking, and it's of course a little bit a risky game. Nobody knows, but we should not forget that Cyprus has 1 million inhabitants. If you compare that to a free market of 500 million inhabitants in Europe, this is not such a big thing. It's an island that has a very difficult political situation. I think if the European Union and the European governments are serious about trying to restructure Europe and to emerge out of the crisis, then I think in the worst case scenario, Cyprus will be bankrupt and maybe leave the EU zone. I think the European governments are ready and to prepare for these dramatic measures.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mohr, for your insights.
The Japanese government has once again committed more than $1.84 billion in official development loans, or ODA, to an ongoing 11 and newly launched projects in Vietnam. So the credit will be used to implement 5 key transport projects, including the Noi Bai International Airport, to Ngat Tan Bridge Road Construction Phase 2 and Phase 3, the second transport sector loan for national road network improvement, safety improvement of the Hanoi Ho Chi Minh City railway line bridges, and the Hanoi City Urban Railway construction, and also Ngoc Hoi Complex. It will also fund important infrastructure and power projects, including the Kai Mep Tivai International Port construction, Omon Thermal Power Plant Unit 2 construction, North Ngek and irrigation system upgrading, and the Hanoi City Yen Sha sewage system. Furthermore, true projects on economic management and climate change response will be funded through the agreement. Well, according to Suno Motonori, JICA chief representative, he said that in terms of administration, Vietnam will need to improve its financial system as well as infrastructure to continue its economic growth and mid to long-term macroeconomic stability. He disclosed that Vietnam has ranked second after India among Asian countries borrowing ODA from Japan. Around $1.27 billion has been disbursed for socioeconomic development projects in Vietnam so far. But in 2015, the AEC year, tariff barriers are scheduled to be removed within the ASEAN region, meaning that Vietnam will have to improve its business and investment environment while enhancing international competitiveness through structural reform of its economy.
A Chinese embassy official to Laos has reaffirmed that the Chinese government's policy towards Laos will stay the same even though the country has a new leadership. Wang, the chief of the political section of the Chinese embassy to Laos, Wang Hongsun, informed that countries in Asia remain the top priority of the comprehensive foreign policy of China, as China gives importance to neighboring countries, especially Laos. The Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, or the CPPCC, and the first session of the China's 12th National People's Congress, or NPC, that resulted in changes to the Chinese government, with Xi Jinping elected as the president of China and Li Keqiang as premier prime minister, will even strengthen the relationship with Laos because the two countries share a common ideology in which socialism is seen as the path to growth. Wang reminded the audience of the basic principles of the Chinese government's foreign policy, which includes long-term and trusting friendly relations and cooperation that benefits mutual interests. During the previous generation of the CPPCC and NPC, annual visits by high-ranking Chinese officials to Laos became a tradition and will take place again this year to enhance the strategic partnership between the two countries. The Chinese embassy official then answered questions from media personnel about this personal view of Chinese leaders' perspectives on measures against corruption.